Hello, and welcome back to another episode on Coast to Coast Hockey. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Team USA for the upcoming Four Nations Faceoff tournament. I'm Cameron.
I'm Noel.
And I'm Nick. Today we're going to be looking at Team USA. We're going to break down each of the lines and defensive pairings. Skip to the end if you'd like to see the full roster.
Let's get into it. Starting off with the US's first line, and what a first line it is. No big surprise. We all have Austin Matthews there as the first line center. This guy's currently on pace for 70 goals. He scored 60 before. So this guy is going to be probably the best player on Team USA. Nick, if you want to get into the guys you chose to flank him on the wings.
Absolutely. So I picked Jack Hughes on the wing for my roster construction, specifically because looking at things that a center requires a defensive zone presence, a bit of agitation in the corners, as well as to be able to scoop the puck up to the wingers. I felt that Jack Hughes does not embody that type of sort of grindy center that I might want. I think Austin Matthews is a bit more reliable. He takes his routes low in the zone. And I like Jack Hughes better on the wing to be a bit more free, allow people to feed him in the rush. And I also like Jack Hughes out of the faceoff circle because he hasn't been great so far in his NHL career.
Yeah, it's no secret on the channel that Cameron and I are huge Toronto Maple Leafs fans. So for my line, I kind of tried to recreate what they have going on for the first line because we've obviously seen them have tremendous success, tremendous playoff success too. I have Clayton Keller, who is kind of a poor man's Marner, in my opinion, and then Matthew Tkachuk, who's kind of a rich man's Zach Hyman. So we saw that work in Toronto. We have Matthew Tkachuk to be a puck retrieval hound and an excellent playmaker and in front of the net. And Clayton Keller is also a great playmaker, being able to find Austin Matthews to just zip pucks into the net. So that's kind of my thought process for this line.
Yeah, it's fairly similar for me. The thing is, I'm always looking for with Austin Matthews is a playmaker and then a Zach Hyman type player. And to me, Brady Tkachuk is Zach Hyman on steroids. Personally, this guy is a guy who's going to go into the corner and just absolutely level people in pursuit of the puck. He was 11th in hits 2 years ago in the NHL, and he's currently sitting at fifth. This is also a guy who can score 35 goals, just like Zach Hyman can. So I love that fit there. And then to me, I don't think Matthew Tkachuk gets enough credit for his playmaking ability. This guy is one of the best playmakers in the NHL. So I have no issue with him sliding into that role here. I guess you could say the Mitch Marner role. And then just the brotherly connection between those two and the fact that you have Brady Tkachuk out there to defend Austin Matthews as well. So I think this is just a great line for me personally. And I think I'm the only one who had Brady Tkachuk in their actual lineup. So it'll be interesting to hear why the other guys didn't, but interesting difference to start out. Moving on.
One other thing I want to talk about Clayton Keller quick. It may seem like a surprise having him on the first line, but just a couple more points I want to add. They kind of have an Arizona connection. Obviously, they don't play together, but I think they're friends off the ice. And for what stake you want to put in it, they were line mates at the All-Star game, and Austin Matthews ended up winning the All-Star MVP this past year. So that's just more reasoning that I had Clayton Keller on his left wing, which may come as a surprise to some people.
So we all know all-star success translates to
Mhm.
real game success.
Hey,
So
this tournament's replacing the All-Star game, so you
this
never
is
know.
true. Anyways, moving on to our second line projections here. This is where it starts to get a little bit mixed up. So pretty similar formations and personnel on the first lines. Nick, if you want to get into your second line here.
Absolutely. So the only difference with Jack Hughes being on my first line left winger, I could have had him as his own line, but I felt that it was best to be alongside Matthews as a passer and shooter. I have JT Miller, like you both. I think that he's a very versatile centerman. He can play in all situations with and be under any duress to be able to sort of control the game and control the pace. Jack Eichel, I believe, can be a high-flying winger in this age. I don't think he needs to be at center. Similar to Jack Hughes, looking back at face-off stats in the NHL, they're all going to be playing against NHL players for the most part with these four nations. So the top face-off guys in the league should just take the face-offs. So I'll let Jack Eichel, like Jack Hughes, roam free on his wing. And Jason Robertson I have as a good finisher touch. He's having a bit of an off year this year, struggling with some speed issues, but I think Jack Eichel and JT Miller can create the space needed for Robertson.
Nick, you spoke to having Jack Hughes on the wing, and I think I was along the same thought process, whereas I don't have him down the middle. I have him on JT Miller's wing here on the second line. And my thinking, I just flank JT Miller, who's having an absolutely phenomenal year with two speedsters. I think Kyle Connor and Jack Hughes can just fly up and down the ice. And JT Miller is a great playmaker, great passing in transition. He'll be able to find these guys off the rush, and they'll be able to generate lots of chances that way.
Yeah, for me, I went with the decision to keep Jack Hughes at center personally. I just think he's so effective there right now for New Jersey, and just the fact of how well he sees the ice and how dynamic of a player he is, that I just really like having a guy like him down the middle. And I think JT Miller is a guy who does have a lot of history playing the wing in the NHL. So I'm totally fine with him playing on that left wing. And then I threw Kyle Connor on his off wing just because I often don't mind having a sniper on their off wing. It can open them up to some shots sometimes that they wouldn't always have on the rush. So for me, having a guy like Kyle Connor who could score 50 goals any given year that he's healthy, with Jack Hughes, who is just an absolute beast in terms of puck possession and his ability to create plays, and then JT Miller, who again is a good playmaker and incredibly intelligent hockey player. I really am a big fan of this second line here as well. So if that's all the thoughts we have for the second line, we'll move on to the third line here. So again, starting to see some more differences emerge in our lines. Nick, if you want to start us off again with your third line.
Absolutely. I think Clayton Keller is one of the most underrated position players in the NHL as a pure winger. I think that he can play with anybody and for anybody. I think he's a very willing and sort of open player to any play style. So I think him alongside a guy like Tage Thompson and Kyle Connor, both are shoot first players, I think will bode well. So having the guy to dish them the puck or having the guy to create space or facilitate any play from Tage Thompson and Kyle Connor. The reason I have Kyle Connor so far down the lineup is because I'm worried about his on-ice impacts. Historically, he's been pretty negative with players such as Mark Scheifele and Nick Ehlers, so I'm having trouble believing that he could play with players of similar caliber like Tage Thompson and Clayton Keller and prove to be a worthy defensive option. So I like to have him with Keller, who can control the play, and Tage Thompson to rip it in the net.
My third line here is kind of the inverse of my second line. If you remember, I had speed down the flanks for my second line. That's when I have speed down the center with Jack Eichel, who's able to create a lot of space for himself. And he's going to be able to find Jason Robertson and Tage Thompson open, who are maybe not the fastest guys, not terrible skaters by any means, but not known for their speed. But they are known for putting the puck in the net. So Jack Eichel, I feel like, is going to be able to create space on the ice, and he's a good playmaker to be able to find these guys. They're all intelligent hockey players, and I think they all mesh well together.
Yeah, with my third line, first of all, I really like the idea of having Tage Thompson as your third line center. Just the size and offense that he brings in that role to me is like the ideal image of what a third line center would be if it was a perfect world. And then I have Jason Robertson and Tage Thompson on the left wing and center there. So those guys are both guys who get a lot of points. They score a lot of goals. And a guy I struggled with trying to figure out where I wanted him in the lineup was Patrick Kane. And it's a bit of recency biased, but just the recent run he's been on at a point per game with the Detroit Red Wings made me make the decision that this guy still has it. Last year was an anomaly because of his hip injury. So I want him on this third line as one of the probably the best American playmaker of all time. Let's just come out and say that. So he's here with two young bucks and he's going to show them the ropes. And I really like the idea of that too. And let's not forget, Jason Robertson had over 100 points last year, down a little bit this year, but still that pedigree's there. And Tage Thompson, I believe, had, I believe 99 points or something like that, just on the edge of 100 last year. So this is, as far as third lines go, like this is just ridiculous. So you really can't go wrong. These are great third lines here.
Jack Eichel is also a proven winner, in my opinion. So that's
100%.
why
Yeah.
I think he deserves to center his own line and kind of be the guy.
He's like Michael Jordan, 100%. He's been on one playoff run. uh, all right, moving on to our fourth lines. So if you want to kick us off once again here, Nick.
Absolutely. So as you can see down the left side, we each picked different options. There are probably dozens of forwards that of American descent that can be in this lineup on the fourth line. You could throw in anybody and they'd have a successful run. The fourth line is really not where it matters. It's pretty much up to stylistic preference. So I picked Cole Caulfield as my specific interest. His goals per game last year, with 26 goals in 46 games on a Montreal team that was not great, is something that stood out to me. This year, he's shooting half that percentage pretty much, and he's put up still 20 goals already on a Montreal team that's even worse than they were last year, arguably. So I think Cole Caulfield in a different scenario, alongside guys like Jake Gensel and Dylan Larkin, could thrive. I really like his shoot first mentality. I like his deception on the ice. I think he's a good part to this team.
Yeah, these definitely aren't your prototypical fourth lines for an NHL team, but this isn't an NHL team tournament. We don't think there's going to be as much hitting, as much physicality, which I guess, Cam, you had Brady Tkachuk on your first line, and we talk about why we didn't. That's one of the reasons I omitted him from the lineup. I had him as an extra, just because I don't think it's going to be as physical, and that's why I had Alex DeBrincat, who's definitely not the most physical player, but he is a terrific goal scorer, and he already has that chemistry with Dylan Larkin, who I have as my fourth line center. We all had Jake Gensel on our fourth line right wing, and he's just such an intelligent player, and I think he definitely would be a perfect fit with Dylan Larkin and Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah, for me, kind of the difference in philosophies, I guess, is instead of taking some smaller goal scoring super skilled guys like Caulfield and DeBrincat, which totally justifiable, I went with Chris Kreider, who's a bigger body. He plays physically, and he's one of the elite net front guys in the NHL. If you look at where he scores his goals, sorry, they pretty much all come right in front of the net. So I love that on a fourth line. I love the physicality that he brings. Great veteran presence as well. So I knew that Chris Kreider had to be on my team somewhere, and I look at him as a incredible fourth liner in this tournament. And I personally, I am not so sure that there's going to not be too much physicality in this tournament because it is played on NHL ice, which smaller ice is conducive to more physicality. So we'll see how it shakes out. But I have Jack Eichel as my fourth line center, which is just ridiculous. Like the four centers I have are Matthews, Hughes, Tage Thompson, and Eichel. Like that is as deep as they come as far as four centers. So that was just my thinking with having Jack Eichel there, and just he's a good energy player, as is the right winger Jake Gensel. So I love this fourth line as well. Jake Gensel's a guy who can score 35, 40 goals any given year, has the pedigree of playing with a guy like Sidney Crosby. So as Noel said, incredibly intelligent player. So uh, all these fourth lines are they any of these fourth lines would be probably the best line in the NHL right now. Like so it's you're not upset with whatever you're ending up with here. Moving on to our decor, we're going to start with the first pair, and this is where the differences start to go away a little bit. We've all got the same first D pair here, and I mean, if you're a fan of hockey and you follow it closely enough, I think you're probably going to have this D pair. So if you guys just want to quickly go over why this is the number one D pair definitively for the US.
Yeah, I've seen this D pair projected out and like since years ago. It really makes sense to have the offensive play driver elite skating of Quinn Hughes with Charlie McAvoy, who doesn't normally play that shutdown role in Boston, but is more than capable of doing that and is no slouch offensively well. Just they're perfectly compatible and makes sense to have them play with each other.
Yeah, this will be one of the best 5v5 teams in the league, or I mean, in the tournament, I should say. If you have Quinn Hughes and Charlie McAvoy on your back end operating at a high octane, high speed, high transition activation type of play, I think both these guys in the rush is deadly.
Yeah, I mean, the only other argument here is you could say maybe Adam Fox should be here, but I think once you see our second pairs, which are also a consensus, the vision will make a lot more sense because, like Noel said, it's a perfect trade off here of McAvoy who's able to slide into that a bit more shutdown role. Obviously, he's going to be willing to do that. This guy cares about winning so much. You can see the way he plays, and then Quinn Hughes is the second best offensive defenseman in the NHL probably right now, just behind Cale Makar. So you can't go wrong with having him on your first pair here. Moving on to our second pair, As I alluded to, here's Adam Fox on all of our right sides, and then the left defense is uh, it's hard to call him underrated because I think everybody calls him underrated, but he is still underrated, and he's one of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL every single season. It's Jacob Slavin. So if you guys want to get into this again, consensus D pair here.
Defensive defensemen really don't get a lot of credit in the NHL, but Jacob Slavin is probably the most well known of them. And again, it's the similar philosophy of having that defensive defenseman shutdown role with an elite offensive play driver in Adam Fox. So it again just makes sense to have these two together, and that's why we have them all the same.
Yeah, Jacob Slavin, whether he's been with Dougie Hamilton, Brent Burns, even Brett Pesci, he's been the consistent, reliable option that a coach can go to, and that's what I want to see. Just in case anything happens, if Quinn Hughes gets out of position on and then he needs to sit for a bit, which is very unlikely to happen, but we have a lot of guys on both Canada and U.S. that are high offense, high puck motivated players that might get out of position. Whereas Jacob Slavin is never going to get out of position. He is this guy in the D zone. He's going to get the puck in transition. He's going to help everybody out, be sort of that anchor. And I really think that's a perfect option in every position, as well as on the PK. This is my first PK defenseman, probably.
And let's just remember here, Adam Fox is a previous Norris Trophy winner in very recent memory, and he's on the second pair. So that just speaks to the depth of this blue line. Uh, One interesting kind of thought I just had is, does this team play two defensemen on the power play? If you have Fox and Quinn Hughes, do you run two D-men on the power play, do you guys think, or do you pick one?
I believe you pick one. You can say like, oh, we have this great defensive, like offensive firepower on defense, but that's just ignoring the fact that you have so many offensive weapons up front. I'd rather see the forwards play on the power play where the most offense is generated.
Yeah, and in a 1-3-1, if you can imagine that in the power play formation, I'd have Quinn Hughes at the top, then I'd have Tage Thompson on the left side, Jack Hughes on the right side, Matthews in the middle, and Kachuk in front. So
No JT Miller.
that's an option too, but it's just how do you sit one of Hughes, Matthew Kachuk, or Tage Thompson on a power play specific option? So
Trying to
Well, I,
project these power plays is going to be
it's
so
I know,
insane.
hard.
but
There's so many options.
I guess they probably go with two super strong units, maybe is what they have to do if you have two offensive defensemen like this. But just a little tangent, just something that is super interesting. But additionally to that, think about your first PK has Slavin and McAvoy. That's unreal too. So moving on to our third pair, where we are finally going to have some differences on the blue line here. This is a very interesting trio of D pairs here. So if you want to kick us off again here, Nick.
Yeah, we each picked an offense skating defenseman with someone who we can trust with the puck. I picked someone who I trust without the puck, Jake Sanderson, as opposed to the other two options. As seen in their NHL play on different qualities of teams, I think Jake Sanderson has proven himself to be a pretty much a top pair defenseman already to this day. And I'm curious to see how he evolves against top talent. But on a very struggling Ottawa team, he has proven to be a consistent option in both sides of the ice. So I like him alongside Brock Faber.
And my philosophy doesn't change here in pairing a great offensive defenseman with a more of a shutdown guy. Brock Faber has been such a delight to watch this year, emerging onto the scene. Probably would be the Calder favorite, except for a guy named Connor Bedard. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Nope.
Luke Hughes may be a bit of an unconventional pick here, but I would just love to see all three Hughes brothers on the same team. And I think definitely an international play. You wouldn't want to miss out on Luke Hughes on the back end.
Yeah, for me here, I think there's so much offense on the first two D pairs that I really wasn't seeking it out here. I just wanted to go for the guys I thought were going to be the most responsible defenseman possible. And to me, that guy's Zach Werenski. I think this guy has to be a lock for this team, assuming he's healthy. And that is the big question. His health has been an issue, so totally understandable. Some people don't have him on their teams. But to me, when this guy is healthy, he is one of the best two-way defensemen in the league, in my opinion. Just so stable. Like I said, he was limited to 13 games last year, but so far this year, he's played 50 games, has 38 points, and 97 block shots in those 50 games. So that's almost 2 block shots per game. Just an unreal two-way defenseman. He's good. Everybody thinks Zach Werenski's good. Analytics people, the eye test, he's a great defenseman. And then Brock Faber's a guy who is averaging right around 25 minutes per game as a rookie with the Minnesota Wild. That's just absurd. We also have to remember Jared Spurgeon, who is an incredible defenseman in his own right, has been out almost the entire year, and Brock Faber has slid into that number one D-man role again as a rookie. So I think he's 100% going to be there. I love the mix of a sophomore player next year in Brock Faber with the wily veteran Zach Werenski, who's a great leader. And if it weren't for Boone Jenner, he'd 100% be the captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Moving on to our projected goaltenders for Team USA. Again, there's not too many differences here. I'm the only one with one difference between the goalies. So if you guys want to start off with your trio of goaltenders here.
Sure, I'll get started on. As you can see, Noel and I have the same 3 goaltenders chosen, and the same order as well. Connor Hellebuyck's been a staple in the goaltending sphere, leads the league pretty much every year in goals saved above expected. He's on the analytics and eye test fronts on a great spot. So just a guy that he also plays like 60 games a year, which is pretty crazy. He has gotten injured every single year. So happy to have him at number 1. Thatcher Demko's had a great year this year as well. I thought he would sort of blossom a little earlier, but on a better Vancouver team, he's also been better, so I like that. And then Jeremy Swayman, super consistent on Boston. You wouldn't think of this guy a couple years ago as being your Team USA number 3, but I have him here. And the omission of Jake Ottinger, unfortunately, watching him closely, it's been a bit unreliable in certain instances, especially at even strength and on the penalty kill. So if anything happens in the USA and they're on the penalty kill, I want somebody like Connor Hellebuyck in net.
This is a Team USA video. I really don't want to bring up Team Canada, but with those 2 teams that are so heavily compared, the United States goaltenders are really where we see some separation. In my opinion, any one of these guys would be Team Canada's starter. Connor Hellebuyck has been a proven NHL starter for a number of years now. He's carried some Winnipeg teams to the playoffs. And this year, he's looking poised to go on a deep run. Thatcher Demko's also having a great year, and Swayman is going to get paid after his deal is done. So these 3 goalies are absolutely phenomenal, and you can't really go wrong for either one of them.
Yeah, for me, I think it's no brainer that Connor Hellebuyck's going to be your starter. This is a guy who's been one of the elite goaltenders in the NHL, amongst the top, say, 3 or 5 top goalies in the NHL for the better part of the past decade. This is a guy who just does it every single year, and he wants to win. He always wants to win. So I think he's going to start every single game he can. The reason I went with Jake Ottinger over Thatcher Demko is I'm trying not to be swayed by this season for Jake Ottinger. I think I see this season personally as an outlier, whereas Thatcher Demko, he's a fantastic goalie. He's been relatively consistent over his career. However, he does slip. There are a couple seasons in the past where he slipped down near 900, which is where Jake Ottinger is at right now. The other thing, too, for me is Thatcher Demko has played very limited, or I can't remember exactly, maybe no playoff games before. Jake Ottinger is a guy who played 19 playoff games last year. He had a mixed bag of results in terms of his save percentage and goals, but the thing was he was making the next save in order to get Dallas to the Western Conference Finals. So to me, if Connor Hellebuyck goes down, the guy I want stepping in for him is a guy who's done it when the lights are on in Jake Ottinger. He's also had he's been a part of 3 playoffs for Dallas, and he had very good results in his first 2 runs in the net. So to me, it's just a guy who's done it in the playoffs. I'm trying not to have recency bias based off this year, and I'm projecting he'll return to form next year. So that's my rationale for having him. And then Jeremy Swayman, the reason I have him over Thatcher Demko is Jeremy Swayman has just been consistently good since he got into the NHL. I'm not expecting him to play any games by bringing him to this tournament, but I'm not upset if he does, because this is a guy who is he just stops pucks. At the end of the day, he is a good goalie. If you put him in the net, he's going to play well. He's split a lot of time with Allmark, and I think that might lose him some marks because he's never had a net to himself. But in terms of a third goalie, like this is ridiculous. This is up there with the best trios of goalies any country could put together.
Yeah, a short tournament like this that is better compared to the NHL playoffs than that is the marathon that is the regular season. I see the favor of having Jake Ottinger on this team. He's proven to be able to do it in the playoffs in that short spurt. But again, I just think Thatcher Demko. I look at Ottinger this season and I haven't been that high on him, and his numbers aren't looking that good. I guess it'll depend on what they're doing leading up to the tournament next year.
Yeah, and two final points on goaltenders. It's likely, depending on the length of the tournament, that Connor Hellebuck could just start every game.
Exactly.
We could see them switch it out, maybe like a third period every once in a while goes to the backup, but it's not terribly important to worry about the second and third string goaltenders. And don't forget that Jake Ottinger is still the Jake Ottinger that got heartbroken by the Calgary Flames, but put up one of the best goaltending playoff performances ever.
Yeah, like it's to me, you can't go wrong with who you take. But like I said, it's just the playoff experience for Jake Ottinger at such a young age. That's what just has him there for me over. I know some people might be up in arms. I don't have Thatcher Demko there when he's in the midst of a Vezina season. So totally understandable to uh, be upset with that. But at the end of the day, I don't think you can go wrong with any of these four. And the crazy thing is, there's other goalies we haven't mentioned here that are in the pipeline coming along as well. So this is a program that is developing a lot of elite goaltenders, and U.S. hockey fans should be very excited about the present and the future here. Moving on to a holistic view of the rosters. This is what we had here. So what you can see here that you wouldn't have been able to in the previous graphics is the extras. So if we just want to go through the players that we had as extras, I'll kick us off. Personally, I had Clayton Keller. This is a guy I really struggled with taking out of the lineup. At different points, I had him on the third and the fourth line, but the recent performance of Patrick Kane and his experience and pedigree, and the fact that these guys are just going to want to play with him as well, is what pushed him out to the outside looking in terms of the lineup. But he's so skilled that you just have to take him. I also thought of Larkin, who you guys have on their team because of his two-way play and his ability to play down the middle. But I just thought the raw talent of Keller was similar to Barzell on Canada. You just can't leave that off this team. And then on defense, I had Jake Sanderson as my spare. This is a guy who's been a elite defenseman since he came into the NHL. Ottawa Senators fans have been preaching about it. Uh, People haven't been listening because they're Ottawa Senators fans, but now it's undeniable. We know that he is one of the elite defensemen in the NHL, and he is going to be for a long time.
Yeah, we talked a bit about the physicality of this tournament, and that's why I have Brady Tkachuk on the outside looking in. Nick and I believe it's not going to be that physical of a tournament, but in the case that we're wrong, you still bring him. He's a great energy guy, great in the locker room, and would be great on the sidelines. But if they're finding themselves being outmatched physically, you can insert into the lineup on any line really, and he just automatically flips the switch for the physicality of this team and brings that energy. In terms of defense, Luke Hughes, I mentioned, is kind of a controversial pick, but I feel like he's pretty interchangeable with Jake Sanderson here. My thinking was you have these three young, absolute studs on the back end, and Jake Sanderson, Luke Hughes, and Brock Faber, that you're kind of developing for future international tournaments if you bring all three of them. And in my opinion, they're all kind of interchangeable.
And I went with a bit of an outside pick on defense. I picked Thomas Harley. Watching him closely in Dallas, he has become pretty much a top pair defenseman at the ripe young age of, I believe, 22, 23. So I just think that in the next year, we're going to see more and more of Thomas Harley, especially his first big playoff run here with Dallas. And I'm excited to see his offense come to fruition, where he joins the rush as a fourth forward and he shoots to score. He's almost leading the league in goals as a defenseman. And I just think that the ability to shoot to score rather than just to shoot is something that Thomas Harley has that other defense may not have.
I'll just say, well, I don't agree with having Harley on the team. I'm really happy that he's on here so that he's brought into the conversation because this is a guy who's definitely going to push for a spot next year if he continues close to what his performance is right now. He's having an incredible season. So really happy that he gets a shout out here. And then just I have a hard time seeing Brady Tkachuk as the extra forward. That's me personally, but you guys defended it well, so kudos to you. But I'm a big Brady Tkachuk guy. I think he's a fantastic player. Outside of that, these teams are ridiculous. USA to me is probably the best team in this tournament, hands down. And I think they're going to go in as the favorites, and it's going to be up to all the other teams to prove that they can beat them. So if you guys have any more thoughts,
It's gonna be fun to watch. That's
oh
my
yeah,
blanket statement for the entire video. I'm really looking forward to this tournament.
It's gonna be fast. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be fun.
oh yeah, it's going to be great. All right, well, in that case, that's going to do it for today's video. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. Make sure to stay tuned for our upcoming Sweden and Finland videos and other videos that we'll have coming out on the channel as well. So thanks again.